My name is David Collins. I'm 52 years old, and this is the story of how my 18-year-old son told me I was too old to understand, and how, on Christmas Eve, someone from my past came back to prove him wrong. If you enjoy real-life stories like mine, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Getting older, I've learned, mostly means you carry your pain quietly. You work, you pay bills, you keep the lights on, and you hope the people you love notice. I used to run into burning buildings for a living. Now I mop lecture hall floors at a community college on the night shift. There's nothing wrong with that. Job work is work, but it's a long way from the uniform I once wore with pride. My son Jake never knew me as the man on the fire truck. He only knew me as the guy who came home smelling like cleaning chemicals at 6 in the morning. It was December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas. The old artificial tree leaned a little to the left, dressed in a mix of dollar store ornaments and crooked crafts Jake made back when he still thought I could do no wrong. I'd just gotten home from a double shift. My back ached in that grinding way that reminded me my spine had metal where bone used to be. I towed off my boots by the door, trying not to track in snow, and listened. Jake sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, headphones around his neck, phone in his hand. He barely glanced up when I walked in. "Hey, bud," I said, hanging my jacket. "How's break treating you?" "Fine," he said, eyes on his phone, working on something. "Just stuff." I poured myself some coffee and leaned against the counter. I was thinking maybe we could do something together on Christmas Eve. Just us. Make dinner here. Watch that dumb movie you loved as a kid. The one with the talking dog that saves Christmas. He huffed a small laugh. "I was 6, Dad, and you made me watch it 5 years in a row," I said. For a second, his eyes softened. Then his phone buzzed. "Actually," he said, setting it down, "I was gonna go to Mom's on Christmas Eve. Eric's doing this networking thing with people from his company. He said I could meet guys in product and engineering, might help with internships." The words landed heavier than I expected. "On Christmas Eve?" I asked. "It's more like a party," he said, "with the right people in the room." Eric's words. I pulled out a chair across from him. "Jake, Christmas Eve was supposed to be our night this year. We talked about that. Plans change," he said. Silence settled between us. He stared at the table instead of at me, like eye contact might make the choice he'd made feel real. "Look," I said, "I'm glad Eric's trying to help you. Connections are good. But Christmas Eve, that means something to me." He sighed. "Dad, this is important for my future. You don't get how stuff works now. It's all networking and visibility and building a brand. It's not like when you were young. You can't just work hard and hope someone notices." I almost laughed at that, but my throat closed. "I don't pretend to understand everything about your world," I said. "But I know what it's like to put your life on the line for other people. I know what sacrifice looks like." He rolled his eyes. "Here we go. Another speech about real work and sacrifice. Dad, you mop floors. You're not exactly the guy who understands the tech industry." It was a careless sentence. He could have stopped there. He didn't. "You're too old to understand how things work now." The words hit harder than any fire ever had. I looked at my son, the same boy who once fell asleep on my chest in hospital waiting rooms while I came off shift. The boy who used to tell people his dad was a hero. Now he couldn't see past my paycheck or my uniform. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. When I finally did, my voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Is that what you think of me? I asked. That I'm just too old to understand? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Really. He picked up his phone instead, the conversation already over. What he didn't know, what no one in my family really knew, was that the future he was chasing had been bought on a Christmas Eve I never talked about, a night that nearly killed me, and a night that was about to walk back through our lives. The morning after Jake told me I was too old to understand, I woke before sunrise, my body aching in a way that no amount of stretching could fix. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, replaying his words, letting them settle like frost along the edges of a window. Kids say stupid things sometimes, but this felt rooted, fed, rehearsed, like someone had been teaching him to see me as obsolete. By 7, I was already at the community college for my shift. The night crew was clocking out, exchanging tired nods with me as they shuffled toward the exit. I'd been on this routine for almost a decade now, long enough that the halls felt like a second home, even if it wasn't the one I dreamed of. In the stairwell, my supervisor, Henry, caught up to me. "Morning, Dave. You good? You look like you've been chewing on nails." I forced a small smile. "Just the holidays. Family stuff," he chuckled. "Ah, yes. The season of joy." Passive-aggressive comments, and pretending everything's fine. I huffed out a weak laugh and kept walking. But once Henry disappeared down another hallway, the smile dropped from my face. I felt hollow, not angry, just empty, in that quiet way disappointment creates. Around mid-morning, I was repairing a broken soap dispenser in the science wing when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jake. "Hey, I'll be at Mom's after lunch. Eric wants to go over some things for the party." Party, that's what he was calling it. I wiped my hands on a towel, staring at the words like they were written in another language. I typed 3 different responses before deleting each one. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt small enough not to push him further away. In the end, I sent nothing. I got home just before 4. Snow was falling in heavy flakes, blanketing the street in white. The living room felt too quiet. The old tree lights flickered softly, casting warm colors across the walls. Jake's coat was missing from the hook. He'd already left. I sank into the armchair and let the silence swallow me. When Megan and I divorced, I told myself that as long as I still had Jack, really had him, everything would be okay. But somewhere between part-time jobs, double shifts, and quiet sacrifices, I'd become someone he couldn't see clearly. Someone he thought belonged in another lifetime, and maybe I did. I rubbed a hand over my face. Too old to understand. The words echoed again. I didn't want to resent my son. I didn't. He was young, impressionable, trying to build a future in a world I barely recognized. But it hurt. God, it hurt more than I wanted to admit. A knock at the door jolted me from my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door cautiously. My sister, Rachel, stood there bundled in a red coat, a lopsided grin on her face. Surprise, I brought cookies and gossip, mostly gossip. I let her in, grateful for the distraction. Rachel took one look at my face and stopped mid-step. Oh boy, what happened? I sat on the couch. Jake's spending Christmas Eve with Megan and Eric, some tech networking thing. She lowered her bag. "And you're okay with that?" "It's not the event that bothers me. It's what he said to me last night." She sat beside me. "How bad?" "He said I was too old to understand how the world works." Rachel's eyes widened. "He said that to you?" I nodded. She exhaled sharply. Dave, that's not him speaking. That's Eric. I've met enough men like him to know the type. I looked away. Maybe. But Jake believes it. Rachel placed a hand on my arm. Kids grow out of these phases. They want shiny things, powerful mentors, Instagram-worthy lives. But the truth, when it really matters, they remember who showed up for them, who raised them. I wished her words comforted me more than they did. Before she left, she hugged me tight. You're not done yet, old man. Life still has surprises. You'll see. When the door shut behind her, the house felt even quieter than before. That night, sleep refused to come. I found myself pacing the living room, pausing here and there to fix an ornament or straighten a crooked photo frame. Eventually, I opened the small wooden box I kept on the highest shelf. Inside were pieces of my past life photos of me in my firefighting gear, medals, a few newspaper clippings, and one item I never touched unless I had to, a scorched nameplate from my turnout coat, the last coat I ever wore. I traced the letters with my thumb, that Christmas Eve, that apartment fire, that little girl. I never talked about it, not even to Jake. That night ended my career. It changed everything. But it also saved 2 lives I'd never forget. I whispered into the darkness, does he even know who I used to be? The house didn't answer, but someone else would. Someone who remembered that night far better than I did. Someone whose life was forever tied to mine. And on this Christmas Eve, whether Jake was ready or not, they were coming back. By the time Christmas Eve morning arrived, the house felt colder than the snow-covered street outside. I woke before dawn, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator. It should have been a day full of warmth, cooking, music, terrible holiday movies. Instead, I was alone, watching the sun come up through icy windows that hadn't been cleaned since last spring. Jake texted me around 9, I'll be at Mom's by noon. Eric wants me there early. No, Merry Christmas Eve. No, see you later. Just logistics. I typed a reply, have fun, and deleted it. Then another wish, you were here, deleted that too. In the end, I sent nothing. Words felt useless when the space between us was widening no matter what I tried. Around 10, I bundled up and walked to the local store to buy a few groceries, mostly because I needed a reason to leave the house. The sky was bright but cold, the kind of cold that made each breath feel like it might turn to ice. Families were out shopping, laughing, carrying bags of gifts. Every sound around me was a reminder of everything this day used to mean. When I got home, there was a note stuck to my front door with a magnet shaped like a candy cane. My sister's handwriting. Check your porch. Trust me, R. I frowned and stepped aside. On the small porch bench sat a cardboard box wrapped in plain brown paper. No tag, no ribbon, just a box. For a second, I wondered if it was a prank, but curiosity pushed me to pick it up. Inside, beneath layers of tissue paper, I found 2 things. A framed photo of me in my fire gear, soot-covered, smiling with exhaustion, and beneath it, a folded newspaper clipping. Firefighter saves mother and toddler in Christmas Eve blaze. I hadn't seen that article in years. My hands trembled, part shock, part memory. Rachel must have dug it out from our parents' old keepsake boxers. I sank onto the porch bench, the air turning sharp in my lungs. Why now? Why give this to me today? Then I saw the handwriting on the back of the frame, definitely not Rachel's. Some heroes grow older. They don't stop being heroes. No signature. For a long moment, I just sat there, the cold biting through my coat as I stared at the message. Something inside me stirred a faint warmth I didn't quite recognize at first. Hope, quiet, fragile, but real. Later that afternoon, Megan called. "David, hey," she said, sounding rushed. "Before you hear it from Jake, Eric invited some tech investors to the party tonight. Jake's nervous. Just don't guilt him about missing your evening together." I inhaled slowly. I wasn't going to guilt him. "Well," she said, softening, "he's just trying to make a good impression, Eric thinks." I know what Eric thinks. Silence. Megan hesitated before speaking again. "You know, Jake respects you. He's just young, a word that covered a lot of sins." After she hung up, the house felt even smaller, even quieter, even lonelier. I set the framed photo on the mantel. Then I placed the article beside it. A reminder, not for Jake, not for anyone else, for me. I used to matter. I used to be someone he might have looked up to. Maybe I still was. Maybe he just couldn't see it yet. At 5, snow began falling again, big, heavy flakes drifting like feathers from the sky. I made myself dinner, barely touching it, then sat on the couch with the TV playing quietly in the background. At 6, a text buzzed. "Party's starting. Wish me luck." It wasn't much, but it was something. I typed, "Good luck, Jake. I'm proud of you." He didn't reply. I didn't expect him to. I was reaching for the remote when a knock echoed through the house. Not polite, not hesitant, firm. I frowned, stood up, and opened the door. A woman stood on the porch, bundled in a deep green coat dusted with snow. Her hair, auburn and loosely curled, escaped from beneath her knit hat. She looked at me with eyes I hadn't seen in 16 years, but recognized instantly. "David?" she asked softly. My breath caught. "Emily." She smiled, warm, small, emotional. "It's been a long time, too long." The last time I saw her, she'd been coughing smoke, clutching a toddler to her chest in a burning apartment hallway while I carried them both down a collapsing stairwell. "I hope this isn't a bad time," she said gently. "I know, not at all." I stepped aside. "Please, come in." She wiped her boots, stepping into the living room. Her eyes caught on the framed photo and article on the mantel. "You kept those," she whispered. "Just found them again," I said. Emily turned to me, expression tightening with emotion. "I'm back in town for the holiday, and there's someone who's been wanting to meet Upraporli her whole life." Before I could ask, a second figure stepped into view from the porch, a teenage girl with bright, gentle eyes. "David," Emily said, voice catching. "This is Zoe. You saved her on Christmas Eve 16 years ago." Zoe smiled shyly. "Hi, I've heard about you forever." I stared at them both, my chest tightening not with pain, but something like awe. Emily stepped closer. "David, we're here because it's time your son knows the truth of who you are." And just like that, the night began to shift. Everything was about to change. For a moment, all I could do was stand there staring at Emily and Zoe, the warmth of their presence cutting through the cold that had settled inside me for days. It felt unreal, like a memory had stepped out of the past and onto my porch. And yet, the emotion in Emily's eyes, the quiet gratitude in Zoe's, made it all painfully real. "Please," I said, gesturing toward the living room. "Come in, both of you." Emily smiled softly and stepped inside. Zoe followed, brushing snow from her sleeves. She looked around my modest house with a curiosity that felt strangely comforting, like she was piecing together a picture of the man she'd heard about her whole life. "You have Christmas decorations," she said quietly, nodding at the crooked tree. I chuckled. I try. Emily's gaze settled on the framed photo on the mantel. I still remember that night, she murmured. I remember your voice telling me to hold on. I remember the heat, the smoke, and I remember thinking, if you didn't get to us in time, my daughter wouldn't have a future. Zoe slipped her hand into her mother's. Mom always tells that part. Every Christmas Eve. My throat tightened. I looked at Zoe, almost grown now, 16, bright-eyed. Hard to believe she was once a toddler, clinging to my coat collar while I carried her through fire. What brings you back to town now? I asked gently. Emily hesitated, her eyes softening with something unreadable. Because I heard from Rachel that things with your son have been rough. She told me what he said, and it didn't sit right with me. Not when I know what you gave up. Of course, it was Rachel. My sister always found ways to shove the truth into places I tried to avoid. Emily stepped closer. David, you didn't just save me and Zoe that night. You lost your career because of what you did. People should know that. He should know that. I looked away, embarrassed. I don't need credit. I never did. But Jake does, Emily said quietly. He needs the truth before he builds his future on a lie about who his father is. Zoe nodded with a sincerity that pierced right through me. I'm alive because of you. My whole life exists because of what you did. I want to tell him. I want him to know who you are. I inhaled shakily. He'll be at that party soon. With Megan. With Eric. Emily exchanged a glance with Zoe's silent agreement. Then we'll go there. My heart jolted. No, you don't need to get involved in all that. It's messy. It's complicated, David, Emily said softly. You risked your life for a stranger. Let us do this for you. The room went quiet. Zoe approached me, her voice gentle. Please let me tell him what you did for us. Kids my age think they know everything. Sometimes it takes someone unexpected to break through. I felt something shift inside me, something I'd been holding tightly for years. Fear, pride, shame loosened its grip. All right, I whispered. Okay, Emily smiled. We'll go with you. You shouldn't walk into that alone. We drove through slow, drifting snow toward Megan and Eric's upscale neighborhood, where every house glowed with warm lights and perfect decor. Emily sat in the passenger seat, Zoe in the back. Neither spoke much. They didn't have to. Their presence was enough. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What if he doesn't want to hear it? I asked quietly. Emily turned to me. Then, at least he won't be blinded by lies. And if he rejects it, then he rejects the truth. But he won't reject you. I wished I believed that as easily as she said it. We pulled up outside Megan's house. Cars lined the streets, sleek ones, expensive ones. I could already hear the muffled sound of laughter and clinking glasses spilling out from inside. The kind of party I never belonged in. Zoe rested a hand on my shoulder. We'll go in first. You come in after. Before I could protest, she and Emily were already walking toward the door. I stayed by the car, breath turning white in the frozen air. My heart pounded, not with fear of confrontation, but with something deeper, fear of being dismissed again by the one person whose opinion mattered more than it should. From where I stood, I could see through the large living room window. Jake was inside, surrounded by adults in business attire, nodding along as Eric talked animatedly. He looked uncomfortable, overwhelmed, completely out of place, though he probably didn't realize it yet. Then the front door opened. Emily and Zoe stepped into the house, Heads turned. Conversations paused. Jake blinked at them, confused. I couldn't hear what was being said, but I watched Zoe step closer to him, watched her lift her chin with quiet determination. She was telling him everything. I saw the moment Jake's expression changed, confusion melting into understanding, then disbelief, then something I couldn't quite name. He looked toward the window, straight at me. For the first time in a long time, my son didn't look at me with distance. He looked at me with recognition, with something breaking open inside him, and he began moving toward the door. The front door opened slowly, letting out a wave of warm air and the low hum of conversations behind Jake. Snowflakes drifted past him like tiny sparks in the porch light. He stood there, framed in the doorway, his breath uneven, his eyes locked onto mine, with an emotion I hadn't seen in years, raw, shaken recognition. "Dad," he whispered, not irritated, not dismissive, just stunned. I swallowed hard. "Hey, bud." He stepped onto the porch, pulling the door gently closed behind him. Inside, the party noise softened to a distant blur. Out here, everything felt still: the snow, the night, the space between us. "Zoe just told me." He stopped, voice breaking. He shook his head like he was trying to clear fog. "She told me what you did, what happened on Christmas Eve. Mom never said anything. Eric never said anything. His voice cracked. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I exhaled slowly. "Because you were a kid. Because it wasn't something I wanted to hang over your head. You deserved a normal life, not a story about the night your dad lost the career he loved. But you saved them," he said, his voice rising with disbelief. "You carried them out while the building was collapsing. And he glanced down at my leg, where the injury had taken so much from me. "You got hurt because of it." "I did what any firefighter would have done," I said softly. "And I'd do it again." He shook his head harder. No, they said you were stubborn, outdated, stuck in the past. Eric always made it sound like you didn't understand ambition, because you never did anything big." His face twisted, pain and shame colliding. "But you did something bigger than any of them." I didn't respond. I didn't know how. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "Dad, I called you too old to understand. I said you didn't get how the world works. But his voice trembled again. "You saved lives, actual lives, and you never used it to make me look at you differently." I stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. He didn't pull away this time. "Jake," I said gently, "you don't have to be ashamed of wanting more or wanting success. But don't ever measure worth by job titles or paychecks. I may not know tech. I may not understand every new thing your world throws at you. But I understand what matters, and that's you." A soft sob escaped him, small, quiet. He leaned into me, his forehead pressing against my chest. "I'm so sorry, Dad," he whispered. "I'm so sorry for everything I said." I wrapped my arms around him, the embrace tight, grounding. Snow fell silently around us, settling in our hair, on our coats, on the porch railing like dust from a shaken memory. "You're my son," I murmured. "You never need to apologize for growing. Just don't push me out while you're doing it." He nodded against my chest. After a long moment, he stepped back and looked up at me with swollen eyes. Can we go home? I don't want to be here. Not tonight. Not with people who only pretend to care." I felt something warm spread through my chest. "Yeah," I said softly. "Let's go." He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder. Inside, I saw Megan and Eric at the edge of the living room, watching us from the window. Megan looked stunned. Eric looked annoyed, maybe even threatened. Jake followed my gaze, then squared his shoulders in a way I hadn't seen before. He stepped back inside for a moment. I didn't hear the words, but I saw the way he lifted his chin when he spoke to Eric. Saw the way Megan's hand flew to her mouth in surprise. Saw the way Eric's expression dropped as if someone had pulled the ground out from under him. Jake returned minutes later with his coat. "Let's go," he said quietly. We walked through falling snow toward my car. Emily and Zoe waited beside it, their faces filled with gentle anticipation. Jake turned to Zoe first. "Thank you," he said sincerely, "for telling me." Zoe smiled shyly. "You deserved to know." He looked at Emily next. "And thank you for coming." Emily touched his arm lightly. "Your father is a good man. Don't forget that." Jake nodded, then met my eyes again, this time with awe, not embarrassment. As we got into the car, Jake placed a hand on my shoulder. "Dad, yeah, can we spend Christmas Eve together, like we used to?" His voice softened. "I want to hear everything, not just the fire. I want to know your whole story." Emotion rose in my chest, heavy and warm. "Yeah," I said, barely able to speak. "I'd like that." We drove away, leaving the noise of the party behind, the snow swirling gently in our wake. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel old. I didn't feel unseen. I didn't feel passed over by the world. I felt something so much stronger. I felt like his dad again. And that was worth more than any title. That was worth everything.